Hello, I'm Jack Blanchard.
And I'm Dasha Burns. It is Thursday, July 10th.
And this is the Playbook podcast. How you doing, Dasha?
Hello, hello. I've survived the tornado.
Did you see that? Oh my God, I've never seen anything like that.
Unbelievable. My street actually flooded. And then there was a beautiful rainbow and it was all fine and dandy.
I think I was cowering in my basement by that point. It was crazy. I've never seen that. Honestly, my whole life. I went to Trader Joe's on the way home from the office last night and I tried to walk out and it's like, holy shit, I'm going to have to live in Trader Joe's and just watch.
Yeah.
And this river flowed down the road before me.
Unreal. I hope everyone's okay out there.
Yes, absolutely. The one big thing I really want to talk about today, Dasha, is Ukraine and Trump's views on it. There's potentially a couple of big things happening today. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, is meeting Sergey Lavrov in Kuala Lumpur today in the margins of a summit. That's only the second time they've met this year, and that's potentially a big moment given how much is going on between the US and Russia at the moment. The other thing we should keep an eye out for is more movement on the sanctions bill in the Senate, because we've been hearing lots from the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, about that. Keep an eye on Congress today because we might see some movement there as well. But the sort of bigger picture is that this really feels to me like the week where Trump really turned on Putin. And it feels like a really big moment to me. And everything we're hearing from the president each day this week just seems to confirm that more and more.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, sort of seeing him come to terms with the reality that so many people who have dealt with Putin for a long time have known, which is like, this is not an easy guy to deal with. He is not somebody that is actually really going to be easily manipulated or pushed into a corner or coaxed into any sort of deals. Like, he has his agenda and he's going to enact it. And you can see the frustration that it's just not as easy as he thought it was going to be. And when you think about the moment this week, the way he's talking about Zelensky and Ukraine and the people who are being killed in that country this week compared to the scene that we saw in the Oval Office just a couple of months ago, the tone shift is remarkable.
Completely different. Last Thursday, there was a phone call between Trump and Putin. We hadn't been led to know about it in advance, but we heard afterwards. And Trump said pretty quickly afterwards it was a bad phone call and he wasn't happy with what happened. And every day since then, he's been more and more aggressive and angry at Vladimir Putin. They haven't spoken again since, but I would love to hear what happened on that call, because it feels like that was the moment that Trump just came away and went, you know what? People in my ear telling me he's bullshitting me. They're right. And literally the next day, Friday last week, he's on the phone to Zelensky, sympathizing with Zelensky about the Pentagon stopping these weapon shipments, saying, I didn't have anything to do with that, starts making promises to Zelensky about restarting the weapons. Zelensky comes off that call elated. He said it's the best call he's had with Trump. And then every day since then, Trump just starts saying, and by the way, Putin, I'm really cross with that guy. And suddenly this week, we're starting to see real policy change coming out of the White House on Russia, Ukraine. Trump and people in the White House are now talking about extra weapons going to Ukraine. Like, that's a whole different thing, stuff that wasn't just agreed by Biden and Congress last year, but new stuff coming. And then there's this sanctions bill that's been kicking around the Senate for ages. Suddenly feels like we're getting some movement on that as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't have seen any of this coming from Trump of even just a few months ago. I mean, he was not willing to do the bare minimum, let alone go the extra mile for Ukraine. And now he is leaning toward, it seems, potentially, the sanctions package that, again, I talked to Rubio at NATO, what was it, just a couple of weeks ago? And he was saying at that time that the posture from the president is, we're not going there yet. We want to give Russia more space. We don't think that's what's going to bring them to the table. We'll see if he actually decides to go through with the sanctions. And I know that one of the things they're trying to do with the bill is give more discretion to the president, write that into that piece of legislation. But regardless, this is a massive change, and really a change away from not only what a lot of his base wants to see, but also what a lot of folks in his administration who come out of the MAGA foreign policy fold of isolationism, a path that they're not necessarily on board with, i.e. what we saw the Pentagon do that we now know from reporting was not approved by President Trump.
Exactly. And I'd love a penny for J.D. Vance's thoughts on this, a penny for Pete Hegseth's thoughts on this. The Pentagon's now desperately backpedaling, saying, oh, well, we didn't really even stop the shipments in the first place. And we're all on the same page. Of course you are. One of the caveats, Dasha, is that with President Trump, today, this is where we are. This time tomorrow, we might be in a completely different place. But it feels genuine, this, to me.
Yeah, and I'll say tonally, too, I don't think I've heard this entire administration or even on the campaign trail, I don't think I've ever heard Trump speak with so much sympathy, empathy, whatever you want to call it, about Ukraine and its people specifically. He's talked a lot about how there are too many people dying on both sides. The Russians are losing people. The Ukrainians are losing people. He's now acknowledging that one side is an aggressor, the other side is being invaded, and it is their civilians that are being targeted specifically by the Russian military.
Yeah, the thing that was driving people insane in the early months was Trump using almost like a passive tense, like people are dying, one side has invaded the other and are bombing the hell out of them is what's happened.
And now he's saying that. Now he's saying that out loud.
Exactly. And interestingly, one of the other things that has happened since that call last Thursday, I mean, clearly Putin can see what is happening. He is also cranking it up in Ukraine. You know, last night and the night before, we've seen absolutely devastating waves of attacks on civilian areas, some of the biggest attacks we've seen in the entire war. It's almost like Putin's gone, oh, well, I've strung him along for a bit. That's now gone. I might as well just go all in now and see how far we can push this. And obviously Ukraine paying a terrible toll for that because they're still waiting for more of these defensive weapons to arrive.
I think for a lot of folks, what Trump has done in the Middle East and the level of involvement in Iran was quite surprising. We've talked constantly about the madman operation that he's running when it comes to foreign policy. Like, Trump and Putin actually head on. I mean, there are a lot of different permutations that this could take if Putin does indeed keep pushing Trump, and Trump, what the last thing he wants to do is look weak. And if he feels like we are past the point of being able to negotiate with this guy, who knows where we'll go. The problem is he's got a base that really, really, really does not want this. So how he plays that is going to be really interesting to watch.
One of the main reasons Trump was so keen to bring a quick end to this war is that we know he's got this obsession, Dasha, with winning the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes,
right? He talks about this all the time. And I remember reading the books about the first administration. He was obsessing about it then as well, everybody said.
And now everyone who's trying to curry favor is like, yeah, give that guy the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, I would just wonder if the president has got any idea of how the Nobel Peace Prize is awarded. He seems to be sort of collecting world leaders in his house to come in and sort of say, you should win the Nobel Peace Prize. We saw all these African leaders lining up yesterday to say, yes, sir, you should win it. Netanyahu, I mean, of all the people to be nominating someone for a Nobel Peace Prize, you know, Benjamin Netanyahu doing it without even a slight sense of irony. And there have been others. The general from Pakistan, you might remember, nominated him in June, immediately got invited to the White House for lunch as a sort of celebration of him doing that. Trump really cares about this stuff. Do you remember he did a Truth Social post about it where it was like the whiniest thing where he's like, I've done all this and I'll never get the Nobel Peace Prize. It's like 6 times in one post he was complaining that no one will ever give it to him. I was just looking at how it actually works.
How does one get a Nobel Peace Prize? Can we submit? How does this go?
It's so weird. I think he thinks it's like all the leaders get together and vote, or like there's some sort of elite Davos-style establishments that decides, no, this is 5 members of the Norwegian parliament, literally 5 backbench lawmakers in Norway who get selected by the Norwegian parliament every few years, sit in a room and say, who should we give it to this year, lads? And that is the process.
So are we going to see these 5 Norwegians invited to the White House?
When is he going to realize that this whole thing is just in the hands of these 5 random Norwegians?
Bring them to Mar-a-Lago. Play them the DJ set.
I was looking at the chairman. He seems like a very nice young man. He's like 40 years old. He's a young Norwegian guy. Does he realize like what he holds in his hands at the moment?
Oh my God. He's going to be on that Mar-a-Lago patio listening to Gloria. A Phantom of the Opera at any minute now.
Well, they'll probably give him some cool job, you know. Anything's possible, isn't it? I struggle to believe that these 5 Norwegian politicians are going to give the Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump, looking at the way that they operate.
But you would be surprised what the playlist can
do. Maybe a bit of Florida love will win them round. We shall see. supposed to end on a lighter note. That was quite a light note, wasn't it? But we've got a fun spotted, Dasha, in the Playbook newsletter. Do you want to read this one out for people?
This is a good one. We always love a spotted at a gym. Peter Thiel at Vita Fitness.
In DC.
I don't know what listeners are frequenting that establishment, but be on the lookout. Also, I know RFK Jr. is an Equinox guy. We got to start keeping a running list of what are all the preferred gyms of these bigwigs.
It's so funny to me. DC is such a small town that people just get spotted going around their daily lives, whether they're tech billionaires.
What wasn't described to us, though, is what Thiel was wearing, because I've had many a spotted of RFK Jr. exercising in jeans. That is his preferred attire for fitness.
Oh,
nope.
That's weird.
Nope. That's what makes him so special.
Nobody does that, do they?
It's his thing.
That's not
so yeah,
a thing.
I don't know what Thiel's fit was, but I'm sure it was expensive.
We should wrap it up. I should also say that I am disappearing for a few weeks. I'm going for some R&R. I know. I'm sorry, listeners. Sorry, Dasha. My kids need to see their grandparents, so I'm going to be off for a few weeks. But you'll still be here, right?
I'll be around.
I'm sure nothing interesting will happen over the next few weeks while I'm not here, right? It's always quiet. The podcast and the newsletter will keep going in my absence, of course. That is all we've got time for today. There is more news and analysis, as always, in the Playbook newsletter, which you can read at politico.com/playbook. And the podcast, if not us two, we'll be back tomorrow. Have a great Thursday.
Thanks for listening.